And we are live. I haven't done a live video in a little while. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris, and this is my channel, We Love Comics. I hope you are all having a great day, and whenever you watch this, I hope you're getting some great comics out there, or whatever you're collecting. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the video that I made, well, posted earlier today. I own my own two businesses. Some of you may or may not know that. I've talked about that in the past. I have my own massage business. I rent space in a salon. I also have my own karaoke/DJ business. Both of these have been roughly about almost 15 years I've owned them. So I'd like to at least think I'm fairly good at business practice. And I'm sure plenty of people out there are. One of the things I want to talk about is the promotion of companies. Now, good or bad, every business out there has their dark moments and they have their positive moments. And the video that I just made, it seemed like it had, in a couple of comments, I can't say controversy, but some people that disagreed, and that's perfectly fine. I love when people disagree, because then it can create a dialogue, it gets conversations going, and then both parties can actually learn from something, especially when it's not just people just name-calling and things like that. So, to those who disagreed with what I was speaking about, I want to say thank you for the way that you posted your comments and did it in such a respectful way. And I love that. I love debate. I love when people want to create honest and basically just dialogue where you can actually not fight and learn something. Now, I understand when it comes to the grading companies, there are going to be people that will absolutely love one company or more than one company and not like another. And that's perfectly fine. There are people who are going to always pick Duracell over Energizer, or Pepsi over Coke, or, you know, the New York Rangers over the, you know, Pittsburgh Penguins. That's fine. Everybody has that. But one of the things I want to make perfectly clear about this, and we should all understand this about business, is we want to try and help all businesses that affect us. Now, unless they're doing a lot of evil things. Now, first of all, if any company is doing a bunch of evil things, they're going to go out of business. So the consumers will regulate what happens. But we also have to be honest and fair about situations. Now, I've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it again because I don't have a problem with it. I'm going to talk just mainly about PGX, at CGC, CBCS, the three grading companies, because they grade comics, and obviously if you're here, I would safely assume that you're a comic book lover. Now, the more businesses that do what we love, the more it benefits us by keeping prices low. Now, again, you do want honest integrity. Now, I've spoken about it before, but I'll do it again. One of the biggest reasons that people don't like PGX is based on a video years ago, and I've seen the video. The video is based on a person who had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle #1, and they got it graded by PGX, and they made a video saying they were going to take it out and, I guess, re-slab it or whatever. Now, if you watch that video, and I have, just as they're about to take the comic book out, the camera moves away. Now, if you're great at editing, they could have easily done a bait and switch. Now, I'm not saying they did because I don't know, I wasn't there. But when you take the camera away, that leads to controversy. It leads to speculation and doubt. So, I actually spoke to the owner about this of PGX. We've actually talked on the phone. I don't work for PGX. I don't get paid a dime from PGX. And they said that the video was a false claim. They actually were going to file a lawsuit, and the person that made that video took the video down. Now, that doesn't mean that's exactly what happened, because like I say, I like to play fair on this. When the person took that video down, they did it for one of two reasons. One, they didn't want to be sued, because if they made a fake video, and there's plenty of people out there that earn a living making fake videos, they took it down so they wouldn't get sued. Or, second, they could have been paid off. Now, I don't know, and no company's ever going to admit that, and plenty of companies unfortunately do it. So, when I made the video, I base things on my own personal experience. I've sent comics to PGX, obviously you've seen that. I've sent comics to CGC. I have a CGC unboxing, and a lot of the CGC unboxings I had was on the previous channel that got deleted, so unfortunately I don't have them anymore. But there's pros and cons for every one. I have to base things not on what people say, not about rumors, not about what happened in the past, but my own present experience. Now, people may not agree with my own personal experience, but that doesn't change what I have witnessed and what I have dealt with. And to be honest, I've had, let's see, probably 80 comics, between 60 and 80 comics sent to CGC, and maybe 2 of them came back where I questioned their grades. So even though I had 1 or 2 comics that I could have questioned the grade, that didn't mean the company did a bad job. I love each one for its own reasons. But like I said in that video I made earlier today, if I have a book that's already signed, it would be silly for me to send it to them because I don't want it to come back with a green label. I would send it to either PGX or CBCS because they do verification. That doesn't mean that, oh, I hate CGC. It just means for that particular moment, the thing that I needed to get done would not be most beneficial to send it to one particular company. It would be more beneficial to send it to 2 others that will meet my needs. Now, when I break it down even further, I break it down based on how quickly they will be returned and the cost. So, if you look at the prices, just because I say PGX is cheaper does not mean I love PGX and hate CBCS. It just means, for my particular situation, I want it to be returned quicker, I want it to be cheaper, because I'm not out to buy comics, get them graded, and turn around to sell them. If you see my videos, I show my comics all the time. As a matter of fact, other than the ones that got stolen from me, I still have the comics that I had as a child. I mean, I literally have a storage facility filled with crates of my old comics. Now, one day I might sell them, you know, if I want to move and, you know, buy an island. Well, I wish I had that kind of money, but live on an island or move to Florida or, you know, someplace warmer because I'm starting to hate New York weather. Maybe one day I'll sell them for that. Or if I had an emergency where, you know, God forbid a family member was in the hospital, but that's a different scenario. So for me, I want to make sure that I use what business works best. And what I've noticed is there's a lot of brand loyalty. And I've seen that not just in comics. I've seen it especially in video games. But I've seen it in other places. Like, I mean, I don't drink soda. And if you research soda, you'd understand why. But me, I would drink either Coke or Pepsi. It depended on my mood, because each one had its taste and its benefit. With batteries, I had no problem using Duracell or Energizer or some other no-name brand. I don't base my loyalty on a business, because here's the dangerous part. Let's say, for example, because a lot of people have issues with PGX, not based on personal experience, but based on what they've heard in the past. Let's say PGX goes out of business. And let's say, because CGC does a lot of strongholding when it comes to Comic-Cons, they make it very difficult for other grading services to get there. So let's say they get PGX out of business, and then a year or two later, they get CBCS to go out of business because they couldn't compete. Well, now you're stuck with only one company, which means that if you want a comic graded, you have no longer any choices, which means they can raise their prices incredibly, and you might not like it, but you can't have anything done because there's no competition. So it's hard for me to not come across, like, I had somebody, and I think they did apologize for it, and they said they didn't mean it directly, but kind of roundabout way said that, you know, well, you know what, I'm not even going to go there. I don't get paid by any company. DS says, can you address the PGX holders? Do they still pop open and are reusable? Okay, here's the thing, and that's a good question. If you actually look at any slabbed book, whether it's CGC, CBCS, or PGX, you can actually open them with your hands. Now, it would take some force to crack them open, but you can even see with CGC, and I don't recommend it because you might break them, but they're made to be pulled apart. And there are actually videos that show, you ever see that, like those what they call, I think, the neutron rings or neuron rings or whatever, those colorful things that you see in a lot of the CGC comics? There's actually a video that shows just separate it a little bit, put a piece of paper in between, and you can actually get rid of those neutron rings or whatever they call them, those rainbows. So they're made to actually be flexible. It's just if you continue to open it, it'll crack. And once they crack on the corners of the holder, then you could see it's been tampered with. Now, each one, I honestly, of all three of the holders, I like CGC's the best. But I don't have a problem with any of their holders because they're meant to be flexible. They're meant to be, if you want to open them, you can. Now, people will say PGX's is a little bit easier to open, and that may be true, but here's the thing. Their label is actually connected to the comic itself. So even if somebody was to manage to open up the comic, they could not switch the comic because the label is actually connected to the comic itself. It's not separate. So you couldn't tamper with it that way. So each one, to me personally, when I get my comics graded, I do it because I generally want to get an idea of what the grade range would be. I also want to know if the comic has been restored or not, or is missing pages, or missing a coupon. Or there was one time where I sent a Edge of Spider-Verse #2 to CGC, and it came back a green label because it didn't have the little digital code. Somebody took that sticker out, and it was actually labeled as incomplete. And I didn't think about that at the time. That was just when I got back into collecting comics. And the last time I had comics before 2015, there was no such thing as digital codes. There was nothing digital except if you were talking about Atari or Nintendo. So what I want people to understand when it comes to business, you want competition. Now, you also want good competition. And when you talk about business, you have to be eliminating the brand loyalty and see things for what they truly are. Because trust me when I say, I like all three companies. And in my experiences, I have had nothing but good things from all three companies. But I've also watched many videos of people talking about how CGC overgrades. How their customer service is basically non-existent. Now, that doesn't mean I hate CGC. Just because I point out the pros and cons doesn't mean I love one and hate another. And that's why I've always said on my other channel, which I don't really use that much anymore, is you want to eliminate the emotional part of what you do in life when it comes to business. Just like they say, nothing personal, it's just business. But when you get brand loyalty, you become almost blind, where you'll say whatever particular brand that you love can do no wrong, and the particular brand you hate does everything wrong. And that's not being realistic, and that hurts you in the long run. Because, for example, if you only love CGC, and you have the right to do it, I never said you can't. If you have a comic that's already been signed, and you want it to be graded, well then if you only send it to that company, guess what? It comes back with a green label that's marked as writing on front cover. How is that beneficial to you? Now, you have two other choices. And then you could break it down with, well, how quickly do I want it returned? Or how much do I want to spend? So we need to be fair. But that doesn't mean being fair means if you point out something bad, it means you're a hater. Or if you point something that you love, it means you're some kind of shill. Because make no mistake, if I have a bad experience with PGX, I'm going to call them out. If I have a good experience with CGC, I'm going to praise them. I tend to use those two exclusively. I've used CBCS before in the past, and I found they undergraded a lot of my comics that I sent in. I like the fact that each one has its pros and each one has its cons. And as a matter of fact, I am about to send between 8 and 9 comics to CGC. And I'm not expecting them to come back for another 3 to 4 months. But if you actually watch many people's videos, they say all the time that if you want the best price to sell your comics, CGC is the way to go. So that leads you to believe that most people grade with CGC because they can make more money. Now, that's great if you're selling your comics. But if you're somebody that just wants to slab them because maybe they just look better in a slab and they want to preserve them, or they just were curious about the grades, you have to have other factors in your business decisions. So I want to be as honest as I can based on my own experience. So the video I made before, yes, I talked about good things about PGX, and I've said the realistic things about CGC. That's because those things are true, and I am not going to use bias, because then I'm not being honest to my subscribers. Now, I can understand if you don't agree or like what I'm saying because of your brand loyalty. You have that right. But that doesn't change my own personal experience. So that's why, for example, people say all the time about, well, a certain company doesn't grade properly. If you watch enough videos, and I recommend you do, don't base things on opinion, base it on your own experience. I watch comic videos all the time. I love watching unboxing videos, especially from people who don't know the grades and do the videos kind of like what I do, where you learn the grades together. I love watching those. And speaking of which, if you make videos where you do those unboxing videos, post the links. I guarantee you I will watch them. It's one of the things I love the most watching. But I see all the time people disagreeing with grades from all companies. Now, until we have machines grading them, there is human error that's involved. It's human opinion. And the funny part is I see all the time that when people get a book back and they're not happy with the grade, the first thing they do is look at the front cover and maybe the back cover and think that's it. When a comic is being graded, you can have page 27 have a little fold. That will take down the value of the grade. If there's a little rust on the staple, that will lower the grade. If on the back of the book there's a fingerprint that you didn't notice, that will lower the grade. So it's more than just a very shiny looking front and back cover. There could have been on page 14 a little bit of an ink rub that you didn't notice. So unless you inspect the entire book and count every page, which honestly none of us ever do, we may not see something that they're going to see. And also keep in mind, one of the things that I speculate why CGC overgrades a lot of times, and I'm not just saying that because of my own experience, I'm saying that because I've seen dozens of videos talking about that, is you make a lot of money. Unfortunately, when it comes to businesses, they can be shady. As a matter of fact, if you knew businesses that are around today that were actually created and used by the Nazis in World War II, you'd be shocked. Look at the history of Disney. You know, they make Marvel. Well, they bought Marvel. But make no mistakes, Disney Corporation has an extremely shady past. But plenty of people will still watch the movies. They'll go to the movie theaters. They'll buy the DVDs. So there is no business on the planet, as far as major corporations are concerned, that are 100% ethical. I understand that. And places are going to make mistakes. But you have to base things not on what other people say, although you could get a lot of information from people and it is valuable, but you should base things on your own personal experiences. And with me, I've used CGC. I've had overall great experience. The problems I've had with them is they charge a lot of money. It takes a lot of time to get your comics back. And to me, that's a factor. I like PGX, because they do the signature verification, they do pressings and dry cleanings, they are the most inexpensive company to get your comics graded, and you get them back quickly. So I don't get my comics to say, all right, I need to get them so I can turn around and flip them. And there's nothing wrong with people who do that too. I mean, if you could make a living turning around and selling comics and it could buy you a car or buy you a home or buy you a life, that's a great thing. And there are people who have a problem with that. See, my thing is, especially in the days of the internet, people seem to always have a problem with what other people do if it's different from what they agree with. And I think overall, that's not good for us as a society. We benefit with competition. We benefit from choice. So why not take advantage of that? But base it on your own personal experience, not what other people have said. Because if you know anything about the internet, there are a lot of people online that are not exactly the most honest people in the world. There are plenty of people that go around intentionally trying to hurt people. I mean, come on, I got 3 or 4 stalkers that thumb down every one of my videos, no matter what content, just because they have nothing better to do. Just because they don't agree with my own thought process. I mean, I find that funny now. I used to get mad about it, which is silly, but, you know, with anything in life, you gotta grow. But my whole point about this video is to make people think a little bit more differently about business. Because especially when it comes to something we love. Obviously, we love comics. That's why I even named this channel We Love Comics. Companies want to make money. They want to get your business. So, of course, they're going to pander to you. They are going to tell you everything that you want to hear. But make no mistake, businesses, especially large corporations like Disney and Warner and Marvel and DC and all the things that we love, whether it's Funko Pops or whatever, they make their decisions not based on their love for what they do, although I'm sure many of them love what they do. They base it on what stockholders say will get them the best amount of money. And if we allow mediocrity to continue, then we will get nothing but what we give, which is mediocrity. And that's why, prime example, and I'll bring this up again, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I saw the original Star Wars movie in 1977 in the movie theaters. I've been to every movie. What they did in The Force Awakens disappointed me. And what they did in The Last Jedi made me never want to spend another dime on a Star Wars product. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have the right to like it, but what they did, in my opinion, did not warrant me to ever give them my money again. I have that right. And being a true Star Wars fan, I've been watching since 1977. I've seen every movie, even the prequels, in the movie theater. I don't like to admit it, but it was done. But if we just base things on just bias and loyalty, then you're going to keep giving money even if you're not happy. And I've seen, like, for example, with the DC movies. Now, the DC movies were not horrible, but they were not really good. And I want them to be good. Because, yes, I might love Marvel more than I love DC, but I don't hate DC. And I want them to succeed just as well as Marvel, because if DC succeeds, it keeps the competition. We all benefit from it. So I don't like to see these DC movies where they rush out a movie just to put it out. And if you fight for it and say, well, it wasn't bad, and justify it, then it gives them no incentive to make a better product. And that's where we as consumers can make or break a business. But we need to be fair and we need to be honest. So my previous video, you may not like my opinion, but that doesn't mean my opinion is wrong, at least to me. Now, if you agree with it, that's great. But if you see the overall point I try to make in the video is that each company has its pros, each company has its cons. And if you base your business decisions based on just brand loyalty and blind faith, the only person you're hurting is yourself. And me being a person that's owned their own businesses, the massage business I've owned since 2001, and my karaoke business I've owned since late 2002. I've been in the business world for a very long time. I know what it's all about with business. And that's why, for example, when I talk about prices of my comics, I make sure I add the shipping cost, and if I get them graded, I also have to add that additional the shipping, the insurance, how much it costs to get them graded, and factor that into the total cost. So if you bought a book for $20, and then there was $6 to ship it, and then you spent $12 to get it shipped and insured to a company, and spent $20 to get it graded, and then another $10 to get it sent back to you, you cannot say you bought that comic for $20 any longer, because you have to factor in all of the other costs. And I see so many people making that mistake. So, unfortunately, when it comes to things that people love, some individuals out there, and luckily they are the minority, not the majority, there are some people that use their passion to an extreme to where if you don't agree with their thought process, there is something wrong with you. And to me, that's rather silly, but they have the right to think that. And that's the funny part about freedom of speech, for example. You have the right to say anything, including things that are absolutely ridiculous, unbelievable, or false. So no company is 100% perfect, and no company is 100% evil. But I can only base things on my own personal experience and the things I witness. I cannot base it and will not base it on group thought. Because not for nothing, 500 years ago, the world thought the world was flat. And on my other channel, people have talked about that all the time, which, you know, I've never left the planet, so I don't know if it is or not. But here's the thing. I don't base things on what other people say. I base it on my own experience. What you believe is your own thing. But just because somebody else has a different opinion does not necessarily mean they're wrong. But we should allow people to have that. And that was one of the reasons why I took down my original channel. Is there are some people that just did not like my thought process. To me, it's like watching a TV show. If I don't like the TV show, I don't write in and complain about how bad it is or how much I hate it. I just turn it off and watch something I like. So we need businesses to have competition, because then we benefit from competition. It keeps prices low. It keeps the customer service better, and the products hopefully improving, unless we settle. And that's why you see Marvel movies very successful, because they give you a great product. The movies overall, I mean, they're not perfect, but they're entertaining. You don't walk out saying, God, I'm so confused or angry. Now, unfortunately, Disney not only owns Marvel, they own the Star Wars franchise, and they've totally driven that underground, in my opinion. But here's the thing. I will watch the Marvel movies because they've been nothing but good, and I will give them the benefit of the doubt, but I will no longer spend my money on a Star Wars movie. That's my opinion. Now, if you're a diehard Star Wars fan, if you hate me because I chose to no longer like something that I had incredible passion in, well, to me, that's just silly. Use your energy on positive things instead of negative things. So, I like PGX. They don't pay me to say that. I don't make a dime from what I do with PGX. But I like them because every time I've used them, I've had a positive experience. So why would I bash a company that's done nothing but good for me? And I like CGC. But we have to be realistic. Most people use CGC because of the fact that you will sell your comics for more. I have people telling me that all the time. So it's not based on my own opinion. It's based on what other people say. And I've seen dozens of videos of people complaining about CGC's grading. How they questioned it. Or some where they get a 9.8 and they look at it and say, oh, I could see a tick here and there. I'm surprised it's a 9.8, but I'll be happily be able to take it. So you have to have, if you want good overall business in the long run, you have to be honest. You cannot use brand loyalty blindly unless you want mediocrity. So who wouldn't want 9.8s on every comic? And who really wants a 0.5 graded comic? But if it's a fair assessment, then you should be happy with it. So my channel is going to be, at times, maybe even controversial, because I speak my mind. And I'm not afraid to say the good and bad things about any company. And that's why I've said before about the whole PGX situation with that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic, that video. I've seen that video. I've even questioned it. It was taken down. So that person either made a fake video and was afraid to be sued, so they took it down, or they got paid off. But look at, I'll show you an example. How many of you know the beverage company Fanta, F-A-N-T-A? Google Fanta and find out its origins. And you'll find out it comes from Nazi Germany. As a matter of fact, there are plenty of companies that actually come from Nazi Germany. The days of Hitler. And yet people still buy the products. So I'm not saying that means that they're good, or saying, oh, that justifies what somebody else did. What I'm saying is there are plenty of companies out there who are not exactly the most ethical companies, and yet people still do business with them. So I don't know the true situation with the whole PGX thing, but I haven't had that experience. As a matter of fact, when I showed one of my live videos, my Hulk 181, I purposely made sure I did not mention to anyone that it was a restored comic, because I wanted to see if, because I was working with them and I told them I was making the videos, I wanted to see if they would just let it slip by, because wouldn't that make them seem more reputable by giving higher grades, making them look good? But it came back restored. Same thing with my Avengers comic. So in my experience, they were honest. Their grades were fair. As a matter of fact, when I was giving my predictions of grades, I was pretty spot on some of them. I mean, it's not like I said, oh, this is an 8.0 and it came back a 2.0 or vice versa. Comic Sniper says, what are your thoughts on 9.9s and 10 grades? In my honest opinion, and this is just my opinion, I don't know, I really think that's a business ploy from people who are connected with the companies in one way, shape, or form. Maybe they bring them a lot of business, or they're friends with the people, and they do it to make a lot of money. Because there are way too many 9.9s and 10s out there. I mean, that means a 10 is gem mint, which means it has to be perfect. Once there's one fingerprint on it, it's no longer a 10. So unless somebody got it from the company, took it out of the original box with gloves on, sent it in, and was perfect in every single way, to find a 10 is ridiculous. And as a matter of fact, like 7 or 8 years ago, getting a 9.8 was not the biggest thing. It was like a 9.2 to a 9.4 was the highest you would get at a certain point. But it brings business. If you know you could potentially get a 9.9 or a 10.0 with one company and not another, of course you're going to do it. Because unfortunately, people base things a lot with greed. I mean, people may not like to hear that, but honestly, it wouldn't work if it wasn't true. Now, I'm not saying everybody does that, and like they say, a few bad apples spoil the tree. At least that's what I was told. I've heard people quote that differently. But if you go on eBay, you could find lots of CGC 9.9s and 10s. And you'll see it from other companies as well. The least amount you would see is CBCS, because they tend, from what I hear from people, is they grade the strictest. And I agree with that, because I sent a bunch of comics to CBCS, and they were all under what I thought they would be. So again, my thing. And pressing and cleanings help 9.9 and 10s. I don't really know, because I'm not a professional grader. I don't know, but to me a 10 means it's perfect in every single way. And to me, I mean, just the way they ship them from the comic book, companies to the comic book stores. I mean, they all pile them one on top of another, and they're all facing the same way, so you're going to have all that pressure. If you have one little millimeter of a little dent in a corner, that means it's no longer a 10, and a pressing can't help something like that. So, to me, I'm sure there are some legit, but I probably think for every one legit 9.9 or 10, there's probably 5 to 10 more that aren't really legit. Because I've seen 9.8s that have color breaking creases along the spine. So, again, it really comes down to integrity. And if we want to bash one company and just ignore another, then you're going in blindly, and that will hurt us in the long run. And G. Don says there's no such thing as a 10. I tend to agree, but they're out there, and all companies have them. So let's see. Let's read a couple of comments. Bub's Comic says, I sent a batch to PGX, and I'm waiting to get them back. Should be about more 2 weeks. Just live cracked open a Hulk 181, some CBCS, and was able to put another book back in. Old case. Wow, you should make a video about that. So you were able to take a Hulk 181 out of a CBCS case without breaking it and put a new book in the case? Well, that's not good if that can be done. If you make a video like that, just make sure you don't move the camera at all. Keep the camera directly on what you're doing, because people, if a camera goes away, people can accuse somebody of, tampering or editing. Comic Sniper says, to this day, PGX has graded my books the hardest. Well, I guess honestly, you could have anybody say that about all three companies. And that's the thing. You're going to have plenty of videos. And again, don't base it on what you hear. Base it on what people's experiences are. Watch people's videos. Don't just watch mine, and I'm sure many of you watch other people's channels, but watch the unboxing videos from CGC, PGX, and CBCS. I've seen all the time where people question the grades from all three companies. So even though I like CGC, I'm not going to pretend that doesn't exist. And the same thing with the PGX. I've never denied about their history with that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle video, but unless we were there, we don't know what truly happened. Because if you know anything about the internet, videos can be altered, they can be changed, and they cannot be what they appear. So it depends on the person. And like I said, they took that video down, which means, like I said, and I'll say it again, just in case you're just watching, they either took it down because it was really a fake video and they didn't want to get sued, or they got paid off. We don't know. We will probably never know. So this video, I think, has been long enough. It's almost been about 40 minutes, and I know most people don't like long videos like this. But I just want to let people know that when I do a review of something, and that's basically what that earlier video I did was, I can only base it on my own personal experience. Now, I can't apologize if I've only had good experience with PGX just because you have had a bad experience or you may not like them. I cannot and won't apologize for that. And I'm not going to, as much as I like CGC, I am not going to, smooch the backside and not mention any bad things about them. Because then you're not being genuine. And again, my overall experiences with all three companies have been positive. But the best experiences overall, for me personally, have been PGX. I don't get paid to say that. I'm not saying it just because I have, do that thing with the unboxings. I do it because it's true in my own personal experience. I like the fact that I don't have to wait 3 months to get my comics back. I like the fact that the grades have been pretty close to what I said they should be. I like the fact that their customer service is top-notch. I like the fact that they do the pressings and grading services. I like the fact they don't charge an arm and a leg. So I can get a graded book from the, a book graded from the Golden Age for $25, no matter what the value of the book is. Unless it's something like Action Comics or something. They will charge a little bit more for that. But they don't have 50 different tiers that make it confusing. But I have that right just as much as you have that right. So again, there are going to be some people that follow me that are not going to like what I say no matter what I say. My job isn't to please those 3 or 4 people who stalk my channel. My job is to give an honest review based on my own personal experience to the people willing to want to listen and make their own judgments from there. Because even though I might like PGX, I don't tell anybody you have to go deal with them or deal with them exclusively. I don't deal with CGC as much for the reasons I've already mentioned, but I will never tell people don't go there and do business with them. My job is just to say my opinions, and you base your decisions based on your own. And if we all did that, then maybe more businesses would give us better products. And that's why the DC movies, and I'll bring that up again, they're not as good as they could be. But if we keep justifying them by saying, oh, well, they weren't bad and there were some good parts, they're going to keep giving us mediocrity. And that, as consumers, is not beneficial. Because we, as comic collectors, we want the most movies to be good as possible. Because then that keeps the interest going. It brings in new people that buy comics. It keeps our industry alive. I mean, just last week, I went to one of my local comic stores to find out they went out of business. So I only had near me 2 comic book stores, and one is now out of business. And I went there the week before. They never even mentioned it. So I went there the next week looking to see what was there to find out that the store was emptied. So we need to be careful about what a few people will do. It's not the majority, but what a few people do about bashing companies if it's unjustified or if it's something that happened in the past. That's like dating somebody where they made a mistake and you spend the rest of your life with that person making them feel horrible about a mistake they made in the past. If you spend your whole life basing things on the past, you'll never have a future. So I'm not going to sit here and say PGX is an angel, and I'm definitely not going to sit here and say CGC is the devil. Everybody has the good and bad. It's what overall dictates. I know plenty of people that have had relationships or marriages where maybe somebody gambled when they shouldn't have, or spent money that they shouldn't have, or maybe even cheated when they shouldn't have. And you can't spend your whole life making that person feel horrible for a mistake, because then it's not healthy. It's what you've done lately. And I will give a company the benefit of the doubt if they're trying to honestly try and improve from maybe a mistake they made, whether intentionally or not intentionally. Because sometimes we'll never know, even after what some company may say, because they always want to say the right thing. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time to leave comments and to listen to this. Hopefully it kind of makes maybe even newer people understand my thought process. I want to make sure I call out somebody when they do something wrong, and I also want to praise when they do right, but I can only base it on my own personal experience. And again, if it disagrees from what your opinion is, that doesn't mean I'm a bad person, or I'm a hater, or I'm a shill or something. It just means we have a difference of opinion based on our own experiences. And there's nothing wrong with that. If the rest of the world thought that way and allowed people to have their own opinions, instead of everybody telling everybody whether they're right or wrong, the world might be a little bit better place to live in, and I think that's what it's all. And Pubs Comics says it's not you, it's not I, it's we love PGX. There will be plenty of people that will disagree with that statement, but if you agree with it, that's perfectly fine. Think for yourself, base things on your own thought process, your own research, your own due diligence. If you base everything in life on what other people tell you, you better hope those people that tell you the right thing. Base it on your own thought process. And that's why when I say, even with comics, when you get a comic, make sure, just because, even if you put it on eBay and it says, oh, I predict this comic's a 9.0 to a 9.6, and it's got all the pages and coupons and everything in it, don't just take their word for it, because they may not be lying. They just may make an honest mistake. You have to do your own verification, because it's you that will suffer in the long run. So make your decisions based on your own experience, based on your own research, and then go from there. Otherwise, you're going to be led down paths that you really don't want to go down, and you'll end up blaming other people when ultimately it was your decision to listen to them. So be a leader, don't be a follower. And that comes with everything in life. So this, as you could see, is more than just comics. It's about business, it's about life. If you spend your whole life basing everything on what other people tell you, you're going to end up finding out in the long run that you've been led down the wrong path. And ultimately, it's not their fault. It would be yours, because you chose to do that. So I appreciate everybody listening, whether you agree or not, whether you like me or not, whether you thumb it up or not, or thumb it down. I leave that up to you. Go for it, whatever way you think is best. And then I hope you will listen to the words and advice and go from there. And if it helps one person, then to me that was a good thing. And that's why I do what I do. The last thing you would ever want from a place that you want to put your trust in is for them to pander to your likes and desires, because then they're not being honest. And I will never do that. So thanks for listening. Have a great day. And remember, it's not you, it's not I. It's we love comics. Thanks, guys and girls. Good night.